Alright, so moving on, one of the next things we got to do then is A, start to test the light, and B, give it some kind of background. Because this is supposed to be sort of like a studio kind of environment, we generally don't want this thing to just have a physical sky, right? Because it's going to look awkward. It's going to look like this weird spacey thing in the middle of, I don't know, some erratic planet. So the two things that we're tackling here are let's start off with setting up the lights. Actually, no, sorry. Let's stick with modeling, and then we'll get into the lighting. So I'm going to create again a new layer, and I'm going to call this one E for environment, and then I'll just call it room. Room is fine, whatever you want to call it. And so this is basically just kind of creating some kind of environment for it to have a background. And the lighting is just going to basically fade the surfaces so that it looks like it has orientation. And the way that I typically would do that is just grab the back two or even back three surfaces and the bottom, and then copy it out and scale it up. So I'll do an Alt here, so it looks like that. And I'm going to scale it, and for me, I'm going to choose this midpoint and that corner point, and I'm just going to make it really big, kind of like that. So now, depending on where you put your camera, you're going to have hard edges that fade in the background, you know, and you'll see shadow kind of falling on those surfaces. And in some cases, you might see the bottom. You might not see the bottom, but generally it depends on how far away you're going to be from your model. But like mine's going to be really close, so it'll be something more like this. Yes?
If you have a box that is filled to, should we do the same?
No, if you have a box that's filleted, what you probably should do is just build another box. Like just grab a box, go here to there, pull it up. Move it up so that the bottom of it is kind of close to where you want it. Like that. Then you can just explode it and get rid of those extra surfaces. So get rid of that, and you're good to go. Yep. It's really just about getting boundaries that are going to work for you. We then have to actually set our scene, and I was just kind of playing around with that. I know that I'm going to try and show this one here. It does help sometimes if you're dealing with these larger geometry and small geometry to use and utilize the zoom select command to help you. But yeah. So I'm trying to get the right camera angle I like here, and it's looking like, well, yeah, that'll be okay. I think I want a more extreme lens length though. Let's go down to a 35mm. Get a little closer. I do want to see the pedestal too. Yeah, it's probably going to be that. There we go. So then you definitely want to make sure that you save your camera position. So for me, I'll right click this, go to set view, named views, and I'm going to call this render. Nothing special, no magic there. So let's talk about lighting. Okay, I need to get back into Maxwell and deal with my lighting condition. So if you guys forgot, the panel that I showed you for managing some of this stuff, if you like to work in panels, it's right here. It's called the Scene Manager. This one on the left-hand side right there. And for me, it showed up on the right monitor, but it's going to look like this. And we're going to have to go through that process of importing materials and setting up the environment and everything like that. But if you recall, the emitters are something that we can generate ourselves. So we right click and we say new emitter. It's going to give you this guy. And Oh yeah. So let's start by setting up what kind of emitter preview we want. So obviously now we're not at the architectural scale where 10 meters is actually a realistic kind of measurement. We want to go down to probably emitter 2 meter. And then you can refresh that and you'll see this. And then you go into the emitter settings, and this is where we're going to start to play around with the emitter type. Let's see, we could go with the preset. Let's see how those presets are going to work. See, incandescent is warmer. No, I don't like these presets actually. Well, you can start with a preset for the color temperature, and then you can increase the wattage and all of that. So what I'll suggest here for this wattage is I'm going to jump up to probably like a 300 with an efficacy of maybe 20 to start off with. And 1 meter, it's definitely closer than 1 meter, so I'm hoping I'm going to get this sort of mid-range. I'll test it, but it's also, if you recall at all, it's hard to measure that without doing a draft. So I'm going to call this one emitter incandescent. I probably want to bring the color temperature down a bit too. I feel like the actual preset color type for that is pretty really orange. Okay. And yeah, I'll just go with that for now. And we'll fix some of that up later. Okay, good. So then we're going to set up two other ones. I know that my accent lights are going to be a little more intense, a little more dense in terms of the wattage and efficacy. So new emitter. Oh, I renamed that last one wrong. Let's call this one accent 1. Emitter 2 meter we'll go to. And turn, we could leave it on color actually. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends. You guys could do a color emitter if you wanted. We can test that now, but actually I'll test one. No, I won't. I'm not going to test it. So I'm going to leave this a cooler color. So I'm going to leave one kind of in the white range, very fluorescent, and less halogen. So if you're interested, like the blues are going to be more of those like halogen lights that you sometimes see on cars. And this one's going to get more intense. So I'll go to a 500 with an efficacy of 30. This might actually need to be more. Let's try efficacy of 50. I'll give that one a shot. And then one more, accent 2. Let's do emitter 2 meter. And then go down here. I'm going to turn that off. And this one's going to be a little bluer, a little more on the halogen side. This one, I'm probably going to stick with the same elements, maybe 500 and 100 for the efficacy. So that one's very intense at the origin. Maybe I'll go even a little bluer. Okay. So here I have my 3 lights, and we're essentially just going to start applying them to the appropriate layers. And it's as easy as the incandescent being placed on that layer, and then accent 1 being placed on accent 1, and emitter 2 being placed on accent 2. So I am going to stop the video here, and I'll do my draft render in the next one because I need to download some of the materials, the same ones that we were using before. So let's spend a few minutes getting our emitters set up, applied to the layers, bring in some of the similar materials that we used, and then in the next video we'll continue on with that draft render. Okay. What questions do you have? Yes?
How do you get it against like that little, like the door opening?
This icon?
Yeah.
That is done by switching this from the default preview to emitter 2 meter. Yeah, the default preview is more of like a material map default or preview, and the emitter one is specifically for lighting. So that's why you want to switch this one over. Any other questions? Okay, let's get to work.